Welcome to lesson 431. For this note page, I need you to have 3 different colored highlighters. I know that might be a difficult task, so if you don't have 3 different colored highlighters, at least 2 will work, but you could also use crayons or colored pencils. Either way, I need you to have at least 2 different colors. If you have a third, that would also be helpful. In this video, we're working in your Chapter 4 packet on page 9. At the top of page 9, we see an expression here. So I have the 5x plus 2y minus 3 minus 2x plus 4. We're going to talk about a lot of vocabulary words that help us when we look at these expressions. The first vocabulary word we're going to look at is terms. Terms are separated with addition and subtraction signs. And we need to pay attention to if the subtraction and addition sign is making our term positive or negative. So the first term that I see here is the 5x. There's not a negative in front or anything, so my first term is just 5x. Now, when I look next to the 5x, I see a plus 2y. So my next term is a 2y. Again, it's positive because we have this plus sign in front. The next term next to 2y is, we see a minus 3. So because we have this subtraction in front, that tells me that my term is actually negative 3. The next term, right next to my minus 3, the negative 3, I see minus 2x. So again, this minus is telling me that the 2x is a negative 2x. When I look back at my expression, the next thing I see is plus 4. So my final term here is a 4. Those are all the terms that make up this particular expression. The next thing we're going to talk about is like terms. So we touched on this before. When we have like terms, remember that those are terms that match both the variable and the exponent. So when I look through, I'm going to actually highlight my like terms for you. So remember, I asked you to have 2 different colors at a minimum, but hopefully 3 different colors to highlight with, or crayons or colored pencils. So I'm going to use these to help us identify the like terms. So I'm looking through my terms, and I'm looking for something that matches with both the variable and the exponent. So when I look, I also tend to look in alphabetical order because that's the other part of the standard form, but it's not as important. So when I look here, I see a 5x. So notice that's the first one. So there's no positive or negative with it, implying that it's a positive 5x. When I look for my next like term, as I look through the list, I see a 2y. Well, that is a variable, but it's not the same variable, so I'll keep looking. Negative 3 does not have a variable. The next one is a negative 2x. The negative 2x does match with the same variable, and the exponent, because it's an x, it's technically a 1. So we have the same variable and exponent here. So I'm going to highlight the negative 2x. So on the like terms, I'm going to write that I have so my like terms are 5x and the negative 2x. Now I'm going to look back and I'm going to look for more like terms. Now we're done with the x variables, so that's why I asked you to have different colors. When we highlight the next ones, you're going to want to find a new color so that they look different. These are not the same as the 5x and the negative 2x. So I'm going to use a new color to highlight what's next. Well, let's see. The next variable I see is a y. So that's going to be the next one I highlight. So when I look through, I don't see any other y variables. So that's the only y. So I'm going to write that next. Now back up to my expression. When I look for, the next thing I see are my constants. Remember, constants are just numbers by themselves, no variables. So I see a negative 3, and then I see a positive 4. Those are like terms. They are both constants. So the negative 3 and the positive 4. Coefficients, the coefficients are the numbers in front of the variables. So in order to be a coefficient, there must be a variable. So I'm only looking at my purple and pink terms from above because those are the ones with the variables. and I'm looking for the number in front of those variables. So in front of in the 5x, in front of the variable, the x, I see a 5. So 5 is the first coefficient I see when I go left to right. When I look, the next variable I see is the positive 2y. So the coefficient, the number in front of the variable, is a positive 2. So I'm just going to write a 2 next. And the next one I see is a negative 2x. So the coefficient, the number in front of the variable, is a negative 2. Okay, so constants, we already talked about. Constants are our numbers by themselves. So the blue terms that I highlighted up above, negative 3 and the positive 4. Okay, so I know that was a lot of vocab. Hopefully you stuck with me for all that. If you did, you see a lot of space down below this. I'd like you to tell me something about yourself. So a fun fact or just something, your favorite color, anything. Just something about you in the space below all this vocab. Now, turning the page, we're on to the day 1 notes, simplifying algebraic expressions. We've gone over lots of vocab. What we're going to do now is we're going to write each expression in our simplest, and I'm going to talk more about standard form as well. So simplest form here or standard form. So when we look at our first example, okay, so number 1 here, when I look at the 3t's plus 6t's, so to help you with this, I'm going to go ahead and write out what this 3t thing looks like. 3t's really just means I'm going to have the letter T written 3 times. So I want you to make sure you show that as T written out 3 times, T plus T plus T. Plus, and now the next part is the next term is telling me to add 6 T's. So I'm going to put 6 more T's next to it. So when you write it out like this, you'll see I have 3 T's and 6 more T's. So all together, that gives me 9 T's. Now be careful. Make sure that you make your T's have this little tail on them, like you can see here, because otherwise a lowercase t would look just like a plus sign. So you want to just make sure you give yourself a little curve after the T, kind of a fancy T, so that we can tell the difference between our T's and our plus signs. So my answer is 9T. On to the next one. For number 2, I see 4 R's. So again, just to kind of get you the idea of what this is doing, I'm going to write out 4 R's. So I have 4 R's plus 1 more R. And when I see it written out that way, that hopefully helps you realize, okay, I have 4 R's and another R. That gives me 5 R's altogether. So that's my answer for number 2, 5R. Okay, let's try number 3. Now, this one is a little different because to show me that I have 7 F's and then I'm actually taking away 2 F's, I'm going to show you starting off with 7 F's written out. So that's my 7 F's, but this time we're crossing out 2 F's. We're taking 2 of the F's away. So I'm going to show that by just crossing them out. So if I start with 7 F's and I take away 2 of them, I end up with 5 F's. So that's my answer. So remember to circle your answer. You don't have to do the highlighting part. I'm just trying to emphasize that that's my answer, but you do want to make sure you circle your answer. Okay, for number 4, we have 9A minus 8A. Now, if you feel like you still need to, you could write this out by writing out 9 of the A's and then going ahead and crossing out 8 of them. But I think that was just kind of to help you guide to understand what we're doing. We're combining our like terms and we're just going to subtract. So if I started with 9 and I subtract 8, I end up with 1A. Or this can also just be written as A by itself. And that's our answer for 4. Okay, number 5. Again, 5 C's plus 8 C's. I could write them all out, but we're really just adding these because they're like terms, both C's, we're just putting them together. So 5 C's plus 8 C's equals 13C. And that's the answer for 5. Moving on to number 6. Now I have 2 G's and I'm subtracting 5 G's. So we can use our calculator when we have this subtraction because this isn't as simple to do in our head. So in your calculator, you're going to put 2 minus 5 and we'll end up with a negative 3. So my answer is negative 3G. And again, that's just using our calculator to help us with those rules that we use. Now on to 7. So for this one, we're going to again need our highlighters handy because we do need to find like terms here. we're also going to keep in mind that standard form idea. So I always want to have, for standard form, my variables before my constant. So in this case, I'm going to look through and I'm going to see I have an 8K. So 8K is my only variable. So I'm going to start by highlighting the 8K. And then I look and I see a positive 4K. So plus this 4K. So that also is going to get highlighted the same color because they have the same variable with the same exponent. So 8K plus 4K will give me 12K. And then I always highlight all my terms. So although we've already found our variable, we only have one left here, I still like to say, okay, well, this is my other term, and it's just a constant by itself. So then I have the plus 3 that will come after the 12K. So that's my answer, the 12K plus 3. Okay, number 8. So again, looking for those like terms. So when I look, I only see one variable. It's the m. So I see a 7m. And right next to it, I also see the minus 5m. I'm going to highlight these two together because they are like terms. The 7m and negative 5m can be put together. So 7m minus 5m gives me 2m. And then, again, always highlighting all the way through. Now I do see a constant at the end, no other constants to combine with. So I just have a minus 6, which means a negative 6, or subtract 6 from the 2m. So my answer is the 2m minus 6. On to number 9. So when I look through, I see a constant first, but remember, I'm always looking for that standard form. So I'm actually going to keep scanning until I see a variable. I see a negative 6x. So that's the only variable I see. I'm going to highlight that first. And since there's no other variables to combine with, I can go ahead and start by writing the negative 6x. And then I'm going to look back and I see, okay, now I do have a 9 in front. That's a constant. And there's also a 5, another like term that I can put with the 9. So the 9 plus 5, remember you need to highlight these or color them with a crayon. Make sure that you're doing that. It's going to be very important that we always highlight our like terms to help us keep them straight. So then the 9 plus 5 gives us 14. So my answer here is negative 6x plus 14. Okay, keeping moving. We got number 10 here. So again, scanning, looking for like terms. I see a 7p. I don't see any other variables, so I'm going to start by just highlighting my 7p. And I also see a negative 9p. So these two are like terms. So 7p minus 9p can be put together. In my calculator, 7 minus 9 equals negative 2p. So then I keep looking. Now I've highlighted all of my variables. I don't have anything else other than constants left. So new color. I'm going to highlight my negative 1. That's a constant, a number by itself. And I'm going to highlight the 5, another constant, the number by itself. Negative 1 plus 5 equals a positive 4. So that's my answer here. Negative 2p plus 4. Okay, on to number 11. So now I'm looking again, looking for variables first. The first thing that I see is I have just a lot of b's. So I have a negative b. Now, when I have this negative b, it really is telling us that there is a 1 with the b. It's like a negative 1b. So I'm going to put a 1 next to the b here. So now when I highlight my like terms, I can see that it's actually like a negative 1. And then I have the minus 3 and the plus 8. These are all like terms because they have the same variable, the b, and exponent. In this case, technically, it's to the first power. B by itself is b to the first power. So those are all like terms I can put together. Negative 1 minus 3 plus 8 ends up giving me 4b. Remember, they're b's because that's why I could put them together. So I put the numbers in my calculator, negative 1 minus 3 plus 8, and that gave me the 4. But I need to put the b with it because that's why we put them together. Then I already highlighted, you can see there's one constant all by itself, the number alone, and that's the 4. So my answer is going to be 4b plus 4. 4b plus 4. Okay, last one, number 12. So we have like terms. I'm looking and I see in the beginning, I see a variable, an h. I only see h variables in the expression. So I have a 5h, but then I also see plus a 7h, so that means it's a positive 7h. I can put those two together. Remember, you're highlighting these. 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. So 5h plus 7h is 12h. Then I look through and I see constants that I can highlight. Negative 6 minus 8 in our calculator gives us negative 14. So my answer here is the 12h minus 14. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.